So for Jazz Wednesday today, we're going to focus on some theory. We'll do a little bit of playing, but mostly we're going to focus on theory. A word about that, I want to kind of use this as a forewarning for you guitarists who are kind of on the verge of exhausting the typical rock and pop repertoires. And who have considered going into something else, and are considering, or are maybe considering studying guitar at an academic level and get into college. So I say it's a warning because what happens with a lot of guitarists is they start in college and they've played all their typical things and they're ready to take the next step, and about half of them end up dropping off the program because it was not playing their typical rock repertoire. It was a very different system, very rigorous system, requires a lot of the mind and hours of practice and things like that they're not accustomed to. So I'm hoping after today's lesson that you will kind of get a taste for what it's like to study guitar at an academic level. If this lesson is appealing to you, then by all means you should pursue it. If it's not, if it seems really boring, or confusing, if it's confusing, you can go back and do it again, study it, kind of study up on some of the basics of theory. But if it's boring to you, then you may want to reconsider studying guitar academically. So I want to take you from this to this. We'll talk in just a minute how those are related. So most of our triads, most of our open position chords rather, are triads. Meaning they contain 3 pitch classes. Now they contain more than 3 pitches obviously, but they contain 3 pitch classes. In the case of A, we have 5 notes in this chord that I just played, but we have 3 different pitch classes. The pitch classes A, C sharp, and E, which is the root, the 3rd, and the 5th, or the 1, 3, 5. So when we get into jazz strives to do a couple things. Jazz harmony is headed toward a couple things. One is to eliminate unnecessary doublings and even unnecessary members of the triad or chord that we are focusing on. In this case, we're going to start by eliminating scale degree 5. One basic explanation for this is I can play this chord without it and you still know that it's A. Now that's the core principle there. You still know that it's A. You still have something to hang on to. Now, jazz harmony really pushes the limit of that. I think that's the disconnect that happens with a lot of guitarists wanting to venture into it. They just seem so complex because they hear the term jazz theory as opposed to standard music theory or something, and that's totally a misconception, if not a misnomer. It's all the same music theory. It's all based on the same principles. And so what happens is a lot of guitarists go from playing those basic chords into playing advanced grips just so they can learn their repertoire. They do it immediately without really grasping the theory behind it and understanding what the connection is. So this is what I'm striving to do, is to connect these two things for you. So, like I said, jazz is really going to push the envelope of trying to give you something to hang on to where you still know that you still know the context, you still know what the root chord is. So now we're going to strip away the unnecessary doublings, which is these extra A's. We're left with the 3rd. The 3rd is very essential because it's the first harmonizing note. When we go beyond this note, we have the first thing in our tertian system, our system in thirds, is the 3rd. So in the case of A, it's C sharp. So we're going to hang on to that because it can also determine the mode. If we play that C natural, we have A minor. So the next thing we're going to do is turn those other notes into something more interesting. In the case of this A here, we turn it into a G sharp. We're left with a nice 7th chord, nice major 7. In the case of the 5th, we turn it into the 13th. Now this, that may sound to you like a inverted F sharp minor or a just what we would call a 6. Where that's true, it's kind of you kind of get into the semantics of chordal theory there. It's really kind of at this point. It's really kind of minus that 7th. It becomes it's A add 13 is kind of what it is. When we put the 7 in there, it's A major 13. And then lastly, we have this A here, and we can turn it into a 9th, take it up to B, and we're left with this. To show you just kind of how this functions, if this sounds kind of ambiguous to you, that's the goal, again, of jazz. But really all it is this. It's just 5-1 in a different context. With the roots, it sounds like this. So sounds a little more familiar. Same thing works with the minor mode. We can play around with it. We can drop this A, this 1 back to a 7. We're left with that. We can take this up to a 9 again. Another cool thing to do is take it on back to a 6. We have the 13. And then we have 13 and 3 and 5 and 9. This is a real Django type, gypsy jazz type chord. So one last neat thing about this is that this, you may notice that this real chordal type harmony, chordal meaning in fourths, that we'll get to in another video. This is a movable position. It only works here though. It's not, you can't just move it wherever you want. It only works because it's recontextualized to where everything still functions as 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, or 13. Somewhere in there. It fits in there. So this is the 13, the 9, the 5, and the 1. Now, I mentioned earlier that 5 and 1 we're trying to eliminate unnecessary doublings and things like that. You can still play them. They are members of the tonic triad, so of course they can fit in, but you're striving to do more interesting things. That's essentially it. So hopefully this has been not too overwhelming. This could be a resource video. If you were just completely bored by this, then you may want to reconsider pursuing jazz academically. If you were confused, please go back and watch it again. Study up on some basics of music theory. If you were excited by it, then great. Let's keep going. My next few videos will be a little more involved, playing the similar type chords, but will be a little more hands-on. So until next time.